All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We are really just grateful for this opportunity today to share information for you as small businesses and community partners in Arizona regarding paid sick leave and what that'll mean for small businesses and workers moving forward. My name is Thomas Barr. I'm the Executive Director of Local First Arizona. If for those of you that I don't know and haven't met, we're a statewide organization representing over 3,200 small businesses in our great state. And really, we're just always working to provide the most up-to-date information and resources for locally owned businesses in Arizona, especially through this COVID pandemic. So today we're grateful to be able to partner with a national organization, the American Sustainable Business Council, who provides a lot of information regarding policy and how it affects small businesses. And today we are joining them to share this information on paid sick leave, the Families Act, and should that be continued, what that's going to mean for workers and small businesses. So grateful for all of you joining today. You're going to have plenty of time for questions with our expert panelists that you'll meet here in a moment. But I'd like to introduce you to Thomas Oppel from the American Sustainable Business Council to get us kicked off today. So thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you, Thomas. And I am Thomas Oppel, the Executive Vice President of the American Sustainable Business Council. We represent through direct company memberships and our organizational members over 250,000 businesses committed to the triple bottom line of people, planet, profits. Obviously, with the COVID pandemic, the health and economic crises that have faced American business owners as well as Americans generally has been a particularly important focus of ours, working at the national level, but also working with state and local affiliates and partners like Local First Arizona. And so we're pleased today to be partnering on this effort to focus on the importance of paid leave, but also sort of to make sure that the information is out there regarding the original COVID Relief Act that was passed back in March, took effect in April, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, among whose provisions included some pretty important emergency temporary paid sick leave and family leave benefits for workers in an attempt to, along with the Paycheck Protection Program and other programs to support businesses and their employees and to assist them in dealing with this COVID crisis. One of the things we found is that there are many people, many business owners even, who may not be aware of this program. So we wanted to use this opportunity to help make sure that people were aware of the program. The unfortunate nature of it is right now, without further action by Congress, those emergency provisions will be expiring at the end of the year. And that's another reason for doing webinars like these is to advocate on behalf of extending these benefits and then ultimately making them permanent. So that's the reason we're here today, and we're happy to provide additional information, and we're joined by a great panel. So I'll kick it back to Thomas to introduce our next speaker.
Great, thank you so much. So our first speaker today is coming from our Congressional Office of Representative Greg Stanton, who was a co-signer on the original Family Act earlier this year. And so I'm going to introduce you to Laura Muñoz Lopez, who's going to share some contextual information about the Act and what it means for you. And then later on in the webinar, you'll be able to ask her some questions if you have some for her. So Laura, I'll give it right over to you.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you for hosting this really important webinar. I think, the other Thomas accurately said, we really need to get the word out because there are a lot of businesses that aren't aware that this program exists. Like Thomas Barr said, my name is Laura Muñoz Lopez. I am a legislative assistant for Congressman Greg Stanton in the DC office. I cover mostly his Judiciary Committee assignment, but I also handle labor. And so this falls into my jurisdiction. There have been a lot of bills that have been passed through the Congress on the House side since COVID started. So the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which was enacted in March of this year, actually amended the CARES Act. And essentially what the bill would do, it would allow people who are sick to take time off from work without having to miss a paycheck. And it also allows certain eligible family caregivers to take the leave that they needed for childcare, particularly if the child was in daycare, at the beginning when all of that was shut down. The law actually would applied to 65 million private sector workers. And that's a really important number because we know of estimates that of up to 22 million public sector workers would benefit from this, but that don't necessarily have the protections before the bill was passed. It's really important to have the two work weeks that were in the bill to allow for that type of leave to take place. Obviously, COVID was an unprecedented time. Individuals didn't really know if they had to take the leave because a family member or if a child was sick, if they would have their job or if they would get paid for that time off. And so in my mind, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act was a testament to the fact that Congress can work together to pass a legislation that would be this expansive and this beneficial. And we already seen that it actually has worked. So the National Partnership for Women and Families has put out some really great resources on this bill. And it just really encapsulates the fact that we need this long term, right? COVID, no one predicted that it was coming. It was here. We had to deal with it. But what happens next? Any type of normalcy going forward really needs a bill that this will, go beyond the COVID pandemic. I mean, especially in Arizona, where there are over 2 million working people that need, paid leave. The bill actually all of the bills combined only protected like a fragment of that. And so there were a lot of people left out, mostly women of color, working on the front lines. And so while the bill did do a lot, it didn't do everything that we needed to. And that's why we need the Family Act to fill in those gaps. And you will see that Congressman Stanton, if you're looking at the delegation members that are on the bill right now, he didn't join until August of this year. And it's a bill that we knew was out there. It's a bill that we had considered, but it really wasn't until we saw what was at stake for our families on the front lines that we put 2 and 2 together and you said, we need to get on this bill. And so that's why he was on there a little bit later. But now, we talk about this a lot and about those families that, reach out to our office that, need a lot of help, that, not only do they need help with staying home and taking care of someone, but also those different facets of, where's my economic impact payment? Like all of these different things that necessarily, we don't necessarily think of working together. We think about them in silos a lot of the time, but actually need to work together and need to be thought of together for people to be able to make it through this pandemic. And so that is why we got on the bill. My boss fully supports it. I fully support it. I think it's a good starting step. And the fact that it was included in the supplemental relief just goes to show that Congress can work on this and can pass it. And we need to continue this drumbeat of the success stories of it being able to work because we need this long term after the pandemic has passed. And I'm happy to take any questions later on and talk about anything further.
Great, thank you so much, Laura. So like we mentioned, we'll have time for questions in a bit. Thomas, I'm going to give it over to you, though, to introduce our next panelist. And we have you muted right now.
Whoops. Thanks, and Laura, thanks, and we're certainly appreciative that Congressman Stanton is supporting the Family Act. It is a great piece of legislation, and we, I think we all should recognize, as you point out, that Congress, at least early on in this pandemic, truly did come together and move legislation very, very quickly. That being said, we certainly appreciate the effort of the House with both the HEROES Act and I guess what was called HEROES 2.0. It's unfortunate that the Senate wouldn't take up either one of those pieces of legislation, and it looks like we probably won't have another round of COVID relief before the election, but we certainly hope in the lame duck session that we'll have action on that. Businesses, as you know, businesses need the help, and it'd be great to get at least these temporary provisions for leave extended into 2021, so people can have a little bit more certainty. I know you know that. A big part of this was the intent to sort of make the business case, frankly, for paid leave. And there are a lot of statistics out there, but really, as far as we could tell, the first really quantitative look at the impact of companies offering paid leave on those companies' return on investment was done in a study that we were proud to support with Panorama Global. So we invited Trisha Comsti from Panorama Global, try to say that 3 times fast, to talk about that study today and its impact and its implications. So Trisha, take it away.
Sure, thanks, Thomas. Hi, everyone. My name is Trisha Comsti, and I'm pleased to be joining all of you today. I'm representing Panorama. We are an action tank committed to solving pressing global problems through audacious thinking and bold action. We work to create partnerships that drive positive social change. Since 2016, a cornerstone of Panorama's work has focused on advancing solutions for a changing U.S. workforce. This is what we've called the future of work. And paid family and medical leave is an important component of our work on this issue. On this topic, Panorama has focused on looking at paid leave from the perspective of employers specifically, seeking to understand the incentives as well as the barriers to corporate adoption of paid family and medical leave. So through partnerships, dialogues, and research, and working in collaboration with hundreds of businesses, we've worked to make the business case for paid leave. Relatedly, the American Sustainable Business Council also recognizes the importance of paid leave. They've noted that paid leave is a critical benefit to be offered by businesses who are seeking to implement high road practices. Paid leave is an important benefit when considering the needs of the American workforce. And although the Family and Medical Leave Act does require large employers to provide 12 weeks of unpaid leave, there is currently no U.S. federal law requiring employers to offer paid leave at all. So this leaves the decision of providing paid leave benefits up to employers. And some employers do offer paid leave benefits. However, most of the American workforce is still left out. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported in 2017 that only 13% of private sector workers have access to paid leave. And now, as we all do our best to navigate a new environment brought onto us by the COVID-19 pandemic, the importance of paid leave to both support families and keep our economy running has again come to the forefront. The pandemic has really revealed what has always been necessary even before this came upon us. And that is, we need business practices and policies that support both employers as well as employees and their families. And I think maybe many on this call know that a great deal of important research has already been done on the benefits of paid leave to employees and families. However, research is also needed to make the business case for paid leave. And this is why I'm really pleased to talk to you today about a report that Panorama released in partnership with the American Sustainable Business Council titled The Business Impacts of Paid Leave. And in this report, we share findings from what Thomas referred to as the first known quantitative study looking at the return on investment for companies offering paid leave benefits. And the key takeaway from the report is this. Our research provides evidence that an employer can offer paid leave to its employees and also show a positive return on this investment. So companies don't have to choose between supporting their staff and growing profits. They can, in fact, do both. And for policymakers, the report can help people understand that paid leave is not just a benefit to workers and families, but it's also a benefit to a company's bottom line and the economy as a whole. So I'll share some details about the report and our findings. And before diving into really some methods and results, I'll offer a bit of an explanation about why we conducted this research in the first place. Over the past few years, Panorama's work on this issue involved talking to hundreds of business owners. And we found that the biggest barrier for employers to adopt a paid leave or expand a paid leave policy is the limited understanding of the financial impacts of offering paid leave. Some common questions we would hear from employers were, what will a paid leave benefit cost me in my company? Will it help my business retain employees? What will happen to my revenue and my profits? And in a 2018 survey, Panorama found that 70% of businesses that do not offer paid leave perceive cost as the most significant barrier to offering a paid leave benefit. In addition, something we heard repeatedly is that there really is a major lack of data to help companies make a decision about implementing a new paid policy, particularly a lack of data around financial value and the impacts of implementing these policies. To date, information on the return on investment of a paid leave program had really been sparse or purely anecdotal. So knowing that cost and employee productivity were top of mind for essentially all employers looking into a paid leave program, Panorama took on the challenge of compiling and analyzing data that demonstrates the association between offering paid leave benefits and financial results. So now I'll share some of the details of how we carried out our research. For this study, we conducted a comprehensive analysis comparing company financial and workforce data from before to after a company introduced or expanded a paid leave program. The overall objective was to examine how expanding a paid leave program is related to productivity and workforce costs. And when we talk about productivity, we recognize that this term is defined differently in different industries. For our purposes, we define productivity as the value that the workforce brings to a company while turning resources into whatever a business produces. That includes products, services, or sales. So we measure productivity by looking at financial outputs, that is revenues and profits, and then comparing that to the workforce financial inputs, meaning labor and material costs. Our research produced several productivity metrics to provide information about the financial impacts of paid leave. The results I'll share today will focus on 3 of these metrics, specifically looking at the revenue per full-time employee, profits per full-time employee, and total cost of workforce. We have several other metrics we use. There's a lot of detail. If you want more details on how we did our analysis, you can go to panoramaglobal.org and the whole report is there for you, including a lot of details on our methods. But I'll give a quick overview of how we conducted the study and then some of our results. So we conducted the study across 3 different levels. The first level was a really broad cross-industry analysis of companies that had recently expanded their paid leave program. The second level was going down a level to an industry level comparison in which we took a deep dive into the technology and manufacturing industries. And then at the third level, we conducted some individual company case studies. We took a closer look at a few companies that shared insights with us through company level data and also in-depth interviews. So for the first part of the study, the broad view, we focused on 41 companies. And these companies were selected based on the fact that they had sufficient data from the past 5 years, both on their paid leave programs and on their finances. So we selected these companies that had started offering or expanding a paid leave program between a certain number of years. So each company had a clear before and after period in terms of when they started offering paid leave, so a clear comparison. And from this study, we found that a majority of companies in the study that participated saw increases in revenue per full-time employee and profits per full-time employee after expanding or launching a new paid leave program. Companies' paid leave programs actually saw an increase of 4.6% in revenue and 6.8% increase in profit. The second part of our study focused on 2 different sectors, the technology sector and the manufacturing sector. In recent years, large tech companies had made the news of when they expanded paid leave policies. Some, I believe Netflix was the one, provided up to 1 year paid leave to their staff. So the technology industry was seen as being sort of on the forefront of the groups offering paid leave. All told, 34% of technology companies offer some kind of paid leave in 2016. On the other end of the spectrum, manufacturing had a lower adoption of paid leave, with only 9% of manufacturing companies offering paid leave in 2016. So we chose these 2 industries precisely because they sort of offer a different perspective on either end of the spectrum in terms of adoption of paid leave policies. And so for this study, we looked at paid leave adopter companies in each industry and then compared their workforce productivity to their industry standards. So our analysis found that both industries benefited from offering paid leave programs, with the companies in the tech sector averaging a 25.8% 25.8% profit increase, and manufacturing companies averaging a 10.9% increase. And after implementing a paid leave program, we saw that tech companies saw for every dollar they invested in their workforce, they saw a return of $2.64. For manufacturing companies, this return was $2.57 on the dollar. So this is an improvement in productivity of just over 6% and over 3% for each industry after offering paid leave. So additionally, in this study, we took the two industries and we looked at their averages and compared them to the workforce productivity benchmarks of their industry. And so we found that on average, tech companies and manufacturing companies were outperforming their peers on average, those offering paid leave. And then to conclude the overview of the report, I'll just give a quick snapshot of our third part of our report, which is the company case studies. We looked at 3 different sectors: healthcare, technology, and finance. And we found that within these companies that we found, like looking at a company level, that employee retention rose after offering a paid leave program. And companies also reference that offering paid leave helped them align with their company's missions and values. So this was a rather high level summary of our research and report looking into the return on investment of paid leave. What we sought to do was fill a gap in information that was preventing employers and policymakers from understanding how offering paid leave affects the bottom line. Overall, from what the data I've shared with all of you today, you'll see that our quantitative analysis found that employers offering paid leave have seen improvements to their financial standing. And again, the key takeaway from all of this is that our data analysis provides evidence that employers can offer paid leave benefits and also see a positive return on this investment. So Panorama and the American Sustainable Business Council are pleased to share this report and the economic data in it, as it provides the knowledge that paid leave is good for businesses, it's good for employees, and it's also good for the economy. The American workforce has really been changing in recent years, and this year, really the whole world has changed. And with these changes, demand for access to paid family medical leave is only growing. And while the benefits to employees are well documented, a business case must also be made that links paid leave to workforce productivity and a company's financial outcomes. A strong business case will ensure that extended paid leave benefits will remain top of mind for employers and policymakers even after the pandemic is over. So the research in our report is just one step in making this business case. The findings in this report show that offering paid family and medical leave can be part of running a profitable business and potentially also provide a boost to the workforce productivity. So the data in our report provides employers with some of the information they need to make that decision about how paid leave can be part of running their company and doing good business while also doing good by its employees. And there is much more to explore on the business impacts of paid leave and other family-friendly work policies. And this report, we're hoping, is just the start. So you can learn more about this study and the details of our methods and some more data from Panorama and the American Sustainable Business Council. I invite you to find out more information on our website at panoramaglobal.org. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Trisha, let me jump in.
Sure.
Thanks again. Can you, first of all, I just was helping you out. I put Panorama Global, the website, in the chat for everyone, along with the American Sustainable Business Council's website, so that everybody who's listening can grab those. Can you talk about, there were some other statistics, some of which I know came from Panorama, others come from other studies.
Right.
Can you talk broadly about what further research might be necessary? I mean, I think we all recognize that every business owner, particularly smaller businesses, have been under enormous pressure in the last 9 months, trying to just figure out how they're going to survive. And every one of those business owners, in addition to worrying about how to keep their own business alive, was also worried about their employees. You know, I don't know a single business owner who doesn't really care about their employees, about their customers. But can you talk about what additional research might be helpful in making the business case, in helping business owners see how this would be?
Yeah, I'll say that we took a pretty broad approach to the research that we did. I think I mentioned that like our cross-sector or cross-industry analysis took in 41 companies. And so with this study, what we looked at were fairly large companies who had public financial data. And I think something that Panorama would really love to do is really dig into sort of the small and medium-sized businesses and see how offering paid leave affects them, both in terms of like how it affects their workforce and employee retention, and how it also affects them financially. I think it's a common question we get that like, okay, like the study looks at companies that maybe have a lot of money, say like a Netflix or a Nestle, which two companies that are known for offering a really generous paid leave policy. And often small and medium-sized businesses ask us, well, what does that mean for someone with like, maybe under 100 employees or, under 20 employees? So I think we would really love to dig into that data and see how like sort of the differences of scale affect outcome.
I was going to say, I know there are two other studies that I thought might be of interest to the folks listening or watching. I know New York City implemented an Earned Sick Time Act. And about 18 months after they had implemented that, they did their own survey and found that essentially 85% of businesses saw no change in their business costs. So that they felt like it was a worthwhile investment, matching the ROI study that Panorama did. It was also interesting that San Francisco, I believe, was the first jurisdiction to actually pass a paid sick leave policy almost 14 years ago now, I think. And in the first 5 years after it was implemented, San Francisco actually saw a job growth rate that was twice what surrounding jurisdictions were. So fears about this being a job killer certainly didn't apply in San Francisco, and obviously we believe wouldn't apply. And that in fact, employees are much more likely to go to work for a company where they have these kinds of benefits. And I think, as I remember, in your study, there was at least a narrative that demonstrated that the changing workforce, particularly among younger people. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, but how, I think part we didn't really focus on this like too much in our study, but we have in other like past Panorama work that like the employee retention and the attraction of talent based on your benefits is really important, particularly for younger, like looking to recruit in the younger generation, where like flexibility and multi-generational like family living like arrangements like are really more common for sort of the millennial generation. And really the generation of folks who have sort of young children now, like the sandwich generation, where you have like you're caring for older parents while also like having some kids running around who are still in school. And I think having that flexibility is really key for attracting talent, attracting and retaining talent.
Well, thanks, Trisha. I will turn it back over to Thomas and introduce our next speaker.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Trisha, for sharing. So in addition to having a congressional representative and Trisha on here today, we also wanted to provide a voice for a small business that has been doing this and is involved and is experiencing this firsthand, and then can kind of jump into some questions afterwards. So I want to introduce a longtime member of Local First, Stephanie Vasquez from Fair Trade Café, to share for a few minutes how her business has positioned itself to offer paid sick leave for her employees and prioritize their well-being, and kind of just her story implementing those types of things in her business. So Stephanie, I'll leave it right over to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Thomas, and thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Stephanie Vasquez. I am the owner of Fair Trade Café. And just to give you a little history, we're the longest standing coffee house here in downtown Phoenix. I personally identify as a social entrepreneur. I say that business is my second language. I went to school for education and was a teacher for many years. However, have been bitten by that entrepreneurial bug and started my first business in 2007, and am here currently now, 14 years later. People Before Profits is something that's just in the base of the business. And I'll get a lot of questions a lot of times, you know, Stephanie, how are you able to do this? And my return question is, how are you not able to do this? We've heard a lot of statistics, we've heard a lot of stories, we're hearing a lot of information here. However, this is the application part here in the cafe. I hire formerly incarcerated persons. I have independent mothers. I have head of households. I have quite an array of a team here, and their livelihood is sustained by the success of this business. And to me, it's like we have to take care of the heart of the person first. So I look into the eyes of the people when I'm making decisions. So this isn't about bottom line and how is it going to impact my business. And I'm loving hearing the research and the return on investment. However, a return on investment, we're talking about humans. And I think especially during a pandemic, these are uncharted waters. We have no idea what this is going to look like on the other side. However, if we link arms and we really take care of each other, yes, there is going to be a return on our investment. It's going to be, our community is healthier, our people are happier. And what does that look like generationally? So I really am open to questions, and I'm loving just the conversation and hearing. It's almost like confirmation that, yes, I know, I feel like I'm making choices for the best of my team and the community and ultimately the business. However, to hear the research that it's backing it up really is confirming, and it feels wonderful to know that. So I thank everyone that's sharing space and all of their information, and I remain open to questions.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. I love the perspective you bring to this as a community and a holistic approach to it. And it's, I think, energizing to hear that even a small business like a coffee shop can implement these things and be successful doing so. So thank you so much for all you do. We had one question come through, and I'd like to encourage all the panelists and participants, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them. You can either submit them in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and we'll go ahead and field them to our panelists, again, for any of them right now. The first one that came through is asking, Laura, I think I'll give this one to you. We just became aware of the FFCRA that passed last March. Should we have been paying out since April sick and paid leave benefits to our employees who missed work due to COVID-related expenses? If so, can we pay those now and still receive reimbursement under the FFCRA?
Yes, I did see that question. Thank you. So in short, I do not have the full answer to that question. In looking at the bill and the implementation of it, it really depends on the employer requirements. And so I'm just going to take this time now to plug in our constituent services for our office, if I may. This is the type of thing that our office works on really on a daily basis. And since the bills were enacted, I'll put my email here in the chat, but if you can please share it as well to the listeners. And if people can reach out to me directly, I will put you in touch with our constituent team that can help you get those answers. And if it is the case that you should have been doing that, then we will work on that together because March seems like an eternity away. But my email is Laura, L-A-U-R-A, .Muñoz Lopez, that's MUNOZLOPEZ, at mail.house.gov, and I'll put it in the chat. But please, any questions that are directly like that, specific to your business and to your employees, please email me and I will get you in touch with our constituent team.
Great, thank you, Laura. And I think if at any time, I would underscore, if you do have questions about those things, you can reach out to your congressional representatives. If you don't have their contact information, reach out to Local First. We can connect you directly to them to ask those types of questions. They're incredibly helpful. We have another question here for Stephanie, asking if you could talk a little bit about your experience specifically through the pandemic. Did any of your employees have to take time off or for their family members due to being ill or anything like that? And what was that like?
And I'd like to kind of paint the picture for everyone so that they kind of understand. We are a full service cafe, and when COVID first hit, it hit extremely hard and fast, as we're all aware, because these, like I said before, it was uncharted waters. I didn't have experience on how to handle this, and there wasn't a lot of direction. So what I decided to do is I did a hard shut. So I did an immediate hard shut. We were shut for quite some time until I could really wrap my head around, is this a good choice to even, reopen? What would that look like and how do we do it? So with that, about a month into COVID, I reopened and we did a completely contactless curbside. And basically my team went from 25 to 4. So it was a very, very small group of people, and we were not impacted. My family directly has not yet been impacted. And one of and I hate to call them employees because they really are extension of my family. One of my employees had a brother who had come into contact. And so what we decided to do, because it was just the 4 of us working very closely together, is she took her 2 weeks off. Actually, it was a little less than 2 weeks. She got tested, came out negative, and we've just really been very, very cautious on how to do business. And as Arizona continued to reopen, as you can see, probably people walking back and forth behind me, we've just recently reopened 3 weeks ago. And again, we're attempting to do touch-free and as little as interaction possible, which is not the way we typically do business here. We're very much so that community hugging type people. However, the way that we have handled this, just to get back to your question, is that yes, we've had multiple people that have potentially come into contact in the second. That we've really just built this awareness, and the team is empowered to know that testing is available. They know where to get it, and they know they can take that time off. And because of that, I think that that's why we haven't had any situations here at the shop. No one has tested positive here for COVID, although there has been, like I said, many times where we could have potentially been exposed. However, they're utilizing the resources, getting tested, staying home until those negative tests come back, and then coming back to work.
You're muted, Thomas.
Sorry about that. Thank you again, Stephanie. So we've got another question coming in. And again, those of you in the call, if you have any, please feel free to submit them. Laura, what do you think the prospects are for extending the leave provisions of FFCRA in a lame duck session?
Yeah, so, unfortunately, the provisions are set to sunset on December 31st of this year. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It seems like we are not going to have any type of relief package before the November 3rd election, now that both of the chambers are in recess, out of session. I do think that once the election passes and we do reconvene, the negotiations are really going to be the only thing that people are talking about, along with some funding provisions. And so I do think that the prospects are pretty good in terms of having it included, because there has been a lot of data, whether it's anecdotally, but also, we're starting to see some hard data on the fact that it's working, and that just, how Stephanie mentioned, having those resources in a way is kind of this like safety of people saying, maybe I don't need it right now, but I know it's there in case I do need it. And I've only heard of success stories. I've had meetings with the National Partnership for Women and Families. We've had long conversations about this. I think that we have something to point to now, because, if I may, I think before, when we were considering the Family Act, there was a lot of like, we don't even really know if this will work. Are people going to take advantage of it? Can businesses actually implement it and it be successful? To Trisha's point on the report, which I'm actually very excited to read it following this conversation. And so we have at least preliminary answers to some of those questions. And so I think the prospects are high. I think that the bill on the House side has a lot of co-sponsors. 217 was the latest I checked. That's really good on the House side. And I think now that we're starting to see some anecdotal evidence, but also some actual evidence, I think it has a good chance. And, you know, it really takes individuals weighing in with their members of Congress, the ones that aren't on the bill, and even the ones that actually are, because you still have to have those conversations of it being included. And so, you know, my boss is going to support that, for it to be included and for it to be extended into 2021. But it's not going to be easy, but I think it will happen.
Great, thank you very much. So maybe just one final question for Stephanie as we get close to wrapping up here. Thinking through this as a small business owner, and you know, as you look to 2021 and launching next year, what might be some ideas for what Congress can do next to help you and other small businesses? What are those top things that you're experiencing that you think Congress should be addressing?
Thanks, Thomas. What a loaded question. I mean, honestly, we need to get some relief to small businesses as soon as possible. We saw the first attempt of PPP money and how that went, and it's not anything that's that is being tiptoed around. I mean, we know how that was laid out. We know the trajectory of small businesses. I mean, somewhere I read that the projection is that, you know, over 65% of us are going to go under. That's a big number. It's a very large number. Understanding that that we hold 50% of the responsibility of employment here in our local community. So what does that look like for our families? So, you know, I think it's really, really important that we focus on the small business. And I think us, you know, that we dive into our local community and really be intentional about how we can also support, because it's not just a Congress thing, it's us together as a community. We really can. I know I said before, link arms, but what does that look like? So I don't think there's any one topic that they shouldn't look at when it comes to small business. I would say, you know, do it as quickly as we possibly can so we can salvage as much as we possibly can for our community.
Great. And as a follow-up, somebody just submitted in, Stephanie, as an owner of a socially responsible business that treats your staff as family, were you able, and I would say were and how have you been able pre-pandemic to pay yourself and your employees livable wages?
So like I said, this is embedded in my business model. This is something that we've been doing. We've been paying paid sick leave for years on years. So it's, when something is so important, it's embedded in all of it. It's something that we take into consideration. We know that these costs come, and honestly, you plan for it, strategically planning.
Simple as that, strategically planning. Love it. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Well, I don't have any other questions coming in, but you know, any final thoughts, Trisha, Laura, for any of the participants today?
I don't know if Trisha, if you're going or not, but I can just take just a quick second to thank everyone that joined. Again, my name is Laura. I'm with Representative Greg Stanton's office. I know that a lot of these things can be very confusing coming from the government. You're not really sure how it's implemented, especially if you're a business owner. And so I just want to, again, offer up our office as a resource, whether it's putting you in touch with someone in the community or within the federal government, Department of Labor, whoever it may be, please reach out. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just also add, thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to hear like the support that, you know, extended paid leave has among the business community and the government. And I'm hoping that like Panorama and the American Sustainable Business Council can do our part and sort of like offer what we can do, which is, you know, try and like help everyone like make the case for like why paid leave, not only why it's needed, but like why it can make sense from a business perspective too. So I'm really glad that we can be part of this.
Thank you so much, Trisha. And on behalf of Local First, want to thank American Sustainable Business Council for facilitating this today and bringing everyone together. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing your story and insights. Laura and Trisha for your expertise. If anybody joining here today needs any assistance or support from Local First Arizona, we're right here on the front lines with you, looking at different ways that we can help you access resources, funding, whatever it is. So please reach out to our team as we continue on into the end of the year. We're here to support you and just grateful. And just also want to encourage, as you are a business leader in this community, to maintain relationships with your congressional representatives and other representatives within the state, so that they can advocate for you, as we will need that leading into next year, very much so. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. Thomas, I'll give it over to you to wrap us up.
Well, I just want to thank everybody as well. Thank all of our attendees, thank all of our participants. And I'll just reemphasize what Thomas said, whether it's Local First Arizona or the American Sustainable Business Council, both of our organizations are here to support you in the business community, whether it's advocating on your behalf in the state capitol or the federal capitol, or whether it's providing information from those capitals to you or helping connect you with your representatives at the state or federal level or local level even. The idea is we want to be a resource, and we want to be able to provide the kind of information as you're trying to juggle, just the normal day-to-day business operations, let alone having to deal with a global pandemic, let alone trying to figure out the Paycheck Protection Program and the other small business small business agency programs, trying to fill out that paperwork. And as I say, I think most small business owners, most medium-sized business owners, most business owners, period, care about their employees. And as Stephanie, I think, has made it clear, treat them like family, want to do what's best for them. But obviously, the idea of business is to stay in business, and you've got to make money in order to do that. So we want to try and help on all those levels. But I think I hope what we're finding out, both quantitatively and qualitatively, is that paid family leave, paid sick leave, is an enhanced, is a business enhancer. So again, I thank everybody for participating. We're going to make this recording available, certainly on the American Sustainable Business Council website. I believe Local First Arizona is also going to be making this available. One last thing, we've done a small survey amongst our members that we put out last week, and I've sent it to Thomas, and hopefully he'll send it out to his network as well, asking people to give us some information about their experiences with the pandemic, with FCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, and its provisions, trying to get information about that we can help provide to members of Congress, to keep them better informed on what's working, what needs adjusting, what you need as businesses to continue to stay in business. And hopefully we can knock that number down that Stephanie talked about. That is a scary, scary number to think that many businesses we might lose. So anyway, from the American Sustainable Business Council, thank you to Local First Arizona for partnering with us. And please, everybody, stay safe, wear masks, socially distance, wash your hands, follow the science, and stay in business. And good luck to you, everybody. Thank you.